Troy Dannen is here, and he sent a message at his introductory press conference.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another Wednesday edition of Locked On Huskies. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. We write for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. You can check out all of our written work over there at si.com/college/Washington. And today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Lars, we just got back from Troy Dannen's introductory press conferences, Washington's next athletic director, and just initial takeaways right off the bat. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I thought kind of after the hire was announced and kind of just reading up about him, and not just the look, right? Because him and Kalen DeBoer both have that kind of just dad look, that Midwestern dad. You just look at him and you think he's a chill guy, right? You just a guy you can have, a beer around the barbecue with or that sort of thing, where he's not going to be a high class, but he is a high caliber person, right? He's not
in that vein, he did something that I know my dad has done to me, and I'm sure your dad has done to you, like making sure he stood up. He had his kids stand up to introduce them, which I thought was just really great. Just the classic "I'm going to embarrass my children" dad moment.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it just hit. I mean, I had the tweet where I said he's hitting every note. I mean, he hit about every single bar, even the ones that weren't on the script. He hit. So it was like, it just had that feel of like, yeah, when there's a lot of people that say, a lot of coaches say all the time, oh, this is a destination job for me. This is I'm never going to leave. And then 3 years later, they're down the road for some other job. Both Kalen DeBoer and Troy Dannen today said, this is where I want to plant my flag. I want this to be my last job sort of thing. And you just kind of got the sense of it's like, I made it to the Power 5. I'm getting a big time, awesome University of Washington. I mean, that was the one thing that was the theme of the thing, was the press conference, was that everybody that he talked to and everybody that Kyle say, they rave about Washington, the envy of Washington sort of thing. They're envious of Washington, I should say. And so I think Troy kind of realized this as, wait, I have a legitimate opportunity. This is real. You guys want perfect. Let's do this. He just seems like a guy who has a vision. He knows the lay of the land with college football and college athletics in general, as we found out. But both when he was asked after his press conference in a pool with our pool reporters, he was asked about kind of not NIL, but kind of just the future of college athletics. And right away, he had a quick answer. We'll get into it later. But it was antitrust and labor. So, yes. Already this guy knows. And it wasn't like, oh, well, obviously the big point of the thing is, no, he just went right to it. He knows everything. But he's also somebody who clearly wants to gauge what's around him, he wants to empower people with his vision. And so I think it's a perfect fit for what Washington needed after Jen Cohen left.
So I agree. And the first thing that really stood out to me was something that I know just kind of, you see it in certain fan circles where they expect excellence. They expect the best. And there seems to be just this period in Husky history over, especially since let's just call it the year 2000, right? Where mediocrity seemed to kind of almost become a standard here. And if you look at the way that Kalen DeBoer talks, the way that Troy Dannen talked today, everything was about excellence, about being the best. One thing that he said was, we want to be the chased, not the chasing. And it's just kind of, for me, that's one of the things that really resonated just from all this, because I like what you said about NIL. And he had some really great points just about how he's going to invest heavily in it because that is the future. And that's what needs to happen, how he's embraced it with open arms, all these different things that he said. So that was all really great, but it's just kind of this I expect the best, not like, oh, it's okay to sneak into the NCAA tournament. That's cool. We like that. It's no, I want to win. I want to win in every sport and everything that we do. And that's really what it's all about, because Washington for a long time has had this really high standard, especially under Don James. There was this period in Husky history where, this is one of the top 5, top 10 programs in the country. As somebody who lived on the East Coast for a while, people didn't really necessarily understand that, especially living out there during Chris Peterson's run of 3 straight New Year's Six bowls, getting to the playoffs, doing it everything that he did. People were still just like, oh, Washington, that's not what we expect from them. It's like, no, this is the history of the program. It's just kind of got tuned out for a while. And I think it's really special to see, especially for, people like you and me, who this is our business. This is what we want to do. We want to cover this program, and we want to just we want to see the best because that's a good story for us. And that's fun to watch because I know we do this all the time. Watching in 2021 was not fun for anybody, and especially not fun for us when we want to find a good story. We want to prop up these players because that's a lot of what college athletics is. There aren't always a ton of players that make it to the professional level, that make it beyond college football. For a lot of people, this is their peak, or not in their lives, but just kind of in their athletic careers. This is that final point for them. So we want to see the best story from them possible. And it takes people like Troy Dannen and Kalen DeBoer to make that possible.
Exactly. And one thing they have in common is they're relationship builders and relationship cultivators. And I think that's what really resonated with me it wasn't because, to your point, yes, you want excellence, and Washington has a brand to uphold, and kind of, this from the university and academic perspective, it's one of the best in the country. But the thing is, it's carried out the right way. The message is conveyed the right way. It's not pompous. It's not arrogant. It's not, Washington's the best. It doesn't come off as like, wow, you're like elitist, right? You're not better than me. You are better than me. But it's almost like I want to be a part of it versus like, yes, oh, look at him in this ivory tower. I mean, one thing that resonated with me was there's a lot that resonated with us. Let's just make that very clear.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why this is the whole show. So everybody, all the everydayers, strap in for just 20 more minutes of this.
But one thing that really stood out to me was not the relationship part of it. But that he has every single athletic team over to his house at some point in the year. Not just football, not just men's basketball, women's basketball, any team that you have, he has over to his personal house. Not like, oh, let's gather around in the team meeting room, or let's go to where you guys have a practice and I'll show up once just to make my appearance. He really wants to have that personal connection. And we talked about it before he was introduced, right? On our show talking about it. We hadn't met him yet, but it's just everything you'd heard and everything you read and everything that was confirmed today was he's a people person, and he truly is an authentic Midwestern people person kind of guy. I mean, when he pronounced Michael Penix, I'm like, this boy
as a Midwestern guy yourself, like that was right up your alley.
Exactly. I didn't want it because we had a limited amount of time after his press conference to meet with him, so I couldn't necessarily continue on that train. But it was one of those. I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it. And that's the thing is, it's like he knows how to build programs up that we're talking Tulane and we're talking Northern Iowa. Now you have the caliber and prestige of the University of Washington with everything that Troy has at his back, right? He doesn't have the wind at his back. He's got a typhoon at his back. He's like, it's insane to just think 3-5 years down the line what this athletic department, and really even on a grander scale, what the university as a whole, because I mean, everybody talks about, Washington is a great program and a great school and all that, but it's never like, it's not top 5, right? I mean, it is, right? But when you get out and talk around the country, it's like, oh yeah, and Washington, right? When you're talking about top 5, top 10, it's and Washington, but Ohio State, Georgia,
Michigan, Bama, whatever.
Michigan, I was get Michigan, exactly, yeah. Where it's like Washington is on that Michigan caliber, and Troy Dannen is the guy to get him there. It's not that Jen Cohen couldn't. She did a Sarkisian. She got him to get to Chris Peterson. Chris Peterson gets you to Kalen DeBoer. We're just going to skip over the 2 years in between.
And I just, the one thing that I wanted to add to that is something he harped on a lot today during his press conference, and that's the budget, because the budget is bigger. And he referenced like, yeah, I know I need to do a good job of fundraising. I need to do this. I need to do that, which I thought was really great, just from the perspective of he understands his role and he understands what he needs to do. He talked about sitting down with Kalen DeBoer and sitting down with Mike Hopkins and just saying, what do you need from me? Not saying I expect these things from you, because they know that their job is to win, because they wouldn't have been hired if their job isn't to win. But he says, how can I get you there? What can I do to support you to get you there and get you to win? And then he talked a lot about the budget, which is, as you said, something he didn't have at Northern Iowa or Tulane. And he just kind of harped on the fact that big budgets don't win championships, but in that same vein, they certainly help. They do. And having that budget, having all the resources that this university can provide at his disposal is huge. It's just going to be so important for whatever I was going to say, whatever his vision is, but we know what his vision is because he made it very clear. He said, we're going to win in everything that we do. And I just think that that's huge. And we're going to keep talking about all this, but First, got to take a quick second here to talk about our friends over at Jace Medical, because you always want to make sure that you're prepared in case of an emergency, and everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping they have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using our code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So I know we both tweeted throughout the event, but what's just another takeaway that you had from just Troy Dannen on literally anything that he might have said throughout his press conference?
Well, I think it's not necessarily what was it was touched on, right? Where Anna Marie Costa, UW's president, mentioned his role on the NCAA, was not board of directors. It's one of those NCAA, a prominent member in the college athletic circle. Let's just put it that way. The one thing that kind of expanding on the people person point that I made in the last segment, he's also got these, he said, I know every athletic director in the country, and he did not miss a beat when he said it. It wasn't like, well, actually, no, I know a lot of the big 80s, right? He didn't say I know all the big 80s. He said, I know all the athletic directors. So I think from a non-conference perspective moving forward, that's going to help Washington when he touched on it, where you're going to he wants 7 home games per year, which there's a couple of things that likely means moving forward for certain rivalries and things like that.
Yeah, we'll see how that gets impacted.
Yeah, we'll get there. But the one thing that stood out to me is when you're talking about those week 1 kickoff games, right? Those big time, those $1 million+ payouts where, okay, if we're going to travel to Dallas to play,
trying to think now. Alabama.
I was going to say with conference realignment, I almost said Michigan, but I'm like, no, actually, they're going to be in the same conference section, so that wouldn't count. So it's like, but yeah, so Washington versus Georgia in the Cotton Bowl, where you're kind of getting in the middle ground there, $2 million to each. Those are the relationships you want to have, and those are the relationships that he's already got. And now he's just representing a bigger brand where it's like, hey, I mean, Tulane, like, yeah, we might have done a kickoff thing with you. Maybe if you're what's another, like South Carolina or like a mid-major, maybe Florida would be a good example. Florida, Tulane is like a non-conference matchup. Like we'll give you one every now and then, but it's got to be more towards the SEC team. Now when when you have Washington on your crest, it's like, wait, okay, where and when do you want to meet? We'll match, we'll do whatever we got to do. And I think those are the things, because again, for the most part, your non-conference is going to be pretty weak. Let's just call it what it is. Like, because what Troy said, and that's another thing, we'll just continue on with that, because there's so many things the guy said. It really is, and I missed this pun the first time, but they really got a touchdown with TD, Troy Dannen. So, like
oh.
So anyways, but
I have my thoughts on bad puns. Continue.
But anyway, so do I. I'm not proud of it. But with that being said, one thing he said was, we're going to find a way to get into the college football playoff. Translation, that does not mean we're going to play Texas and what's an ACC school? Duke. Sure. Duke. You're not going to have 2 Power 5 non-conference games. You get 3, right? Because you have 9 conference games in a season. So that means one of your away non-conference has to be either a marquee one worth going to, or even honestly, you could probably go to Colorado State. Even it wouldn't be great, but it's like you're just looking for a win, right? You just need a solid, decent. You just don't want to play Incarnate Ward or Idaho, right? I mean, because yes, that's it's a closer geographic one, but you don't want to get that low of a bar. But at the same point, it wouldn't necessarily matter because you're just trying to get to ideally 10-1, 9 or 8-1 in the conference. You are 9-0 in the conference, but those 3 non-conference ones are the ones that kind of get you that early season boost, right? Okay, cool. You're undefeated. You're a top 10 program, top 15, whatever. Now you get to see how much you can move up, right? Whereas if you're playing Alabama week 1, it's like, ooh, actually, or even Texas or Duke or whatever. It's a little bit tougher.
And no, I like that because he said as much, especially because he referenced the 12-team playoff after the press conference when we kind of just got a chance to chat with him. And he's basically said as much as, I expect to find a way to get us into the 12-team playoff every year was kind of his word, not word for word, but that was the implication of what he was saying. And he stressed the non-conference schedule. He stressed NIL a lot. And a lot of it just seemed to, it was all, he seemed to just kind of give a lot of power to his coaches and just say, I trust them to come to me with what they want and what I can do to support them, which I thought was huge. And it's kind of a minor thing, but one thing that I really like to see from him is in the kind of This Is Sports Center style commercial that UW football released on social media on Monday, was kind of just getting him in there real quick, shooting the bow and arrow at the end. It's kind of just making that first impression, that early impression, just like, yeah, I'm just, I'm here to just kind of be that. You gave that cool dad energy analysis at the beginning of the show. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what he's trying to do. And so far he's said all the right things. And one thing that I saw some of it on Twitter yesterday, just kind of after he was on KJR with Dave Softy Mahler, was he's pandering, and he's like, he really knows how to play to a crowd by talking about being a Seattle Sonics fan. No, because that was the first question he was asked after the press conference when we kind of just got a chance to chat with him in the media room. And he went on for 2 minutes about why he was a Sonics fan, how he became a Sonics fan. And just, it was like, yeah, this in the same way as Kalen DeBoer is, as you said, he's just an authentic human being. And that's just kind of what this program needs, is authentic human beings who will build relationships and build up the people around them, but also just have this relentless, I want to win mentality. And I have a feeling in what we've seen and heard so far, that's exactly what he wants to do here.
Exactly. And you want to know how I know he's smart? And he's not pandering by mentioning the Sonics and trying to play up to all the Seattle teams. He didn't mention the Seahawks.
Nope.
And he didn't mention the Mariners. So those two teams, and he mentioned the Minnesota Twins as being his baseball team. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, that was an easy opportunity to say, oh yeah, Ken Griffey Jr., the Mariners, like, who doesn't love Seattle sports, right? Who doesn't love the market of Seattle? Really kind of being that PR-y kind of, okay, I'm trying to pander, trying to win people over, trying to kind of sell the city, my brand, et cetera, et cetera. No, it's like, here's who I am. This is why I'm a good fit. I'm naturally an athletic kind of guy. He joked during his press conference. The kids get his athleticism from his wife, who was also at the press conference. But and so he's got that kind of energy, right? Where it's like he's not a try hard guy. He's not a laid back, okay, cool, I got this job, all right, cool, I'm just going to be the Washington AD. Like, it's like, no, he also values this opportunity, and he knows what the outcome can be as a win-win when all is said and done. And so I think it's the perfect combination, just like with Kalen, where it's like, why did it work so well? Why was he able to keep an entire roster that really wanted to leave because of the previous coaching staff? And a variety of other reasons, right? Guys, there's other reasons, but that was a big part of it, right? Was those players were basically in it for themselves by the end of the 2021 season. And Kalen won over basically the entire roster, save for a couple
of guys.
And those guys, I mean, sure, O'Brien was one that transferred, but again, that was more to go back home to Southern California, hockey, whatever. But other
shots fired in Oregon week. I like it.
I don't know what else to say there. But I mean, that there's nobody left Kalen, and it seems like nobody has left Troy. I mean, you go do a deep dive on him, nobody has a bad word to say about him. Nobody's, hey, when Troy left UNI, he left it in a bad place, or wow, he's really leaving Tulane in the dust with nothing. It's like, no, he built both those things up and leaving them better than he found it.
And to take that a step further, he talked about how he's going to have to go back there this week, and he's like, he said, like, yeah, I got to clean out my office, I got to do this, and he said, I got to go give a personal goodbye to everybody. I have to go make sure that I just say my goodbyes and just kind of thank everybody for everything that they've done. And I wanted to take one other thing that you kind of said a step further before we continue on here. You talked about just kind of not only just not pandering, but also just with the city of Seattle thing, where one person that he referenced, and it also references just the relationships that he's built, was he was talking about former Seattle Seahawks GM and current New Orleans Saints general manager, Mickey Loomis, as somebody who he talked to throughout the process. And Mickey Loomis told him all about how much he loved the city of Seattle and how just the culture and everything here. And it just kind of seemed like that was one of the things that sold him on there. And also, having an NFL GM just number in your back pockets, and never a bad thing either. But I just think that was just a really interesting thing to just kind of also have him just kind of, he just kind of name drop that kind of randomly. It was like, we looked at each other. We were like, wait, excuse me, did he just say Mickey Loomis? Like that was kind of wild.
Yeah, it was one of those where it's like, and here's the thing, you don't doubt it, right? It's
Right.
not like he doesn't have to plug people like, oh, I know, Bill Belichick, I know named X, Y, and Z coach. I did that for
I would
you.
flex that if
But
I knew
but
Belichick. I mean, to be fair.
but right, and most people would. But the point is like he could have named anybody. He could have named certain athletic directors that he's tight with, and he actually went out of his way to say, look, I won't tell you who I talked to, but everyone raved about Washington. It's like, hey, dude, take that job. It's like, and it also seems like a guy that people want to be around, both internally and externally. I think that's the key thing, because it's like not everybody can have the Washington 80 job, but a lot of people want to be in connection with them, because you're talking basketball non-conference. You're talking a lot of other relationships, NIL. Hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, how the state of Washington doesn't have an NIL bill on the record yet. So like that's, I think, something that Troy might be a part of in the future as he gets more ingrained in Washington. Is like, hey, can we get some state legislation to actually make this a little easier for us and to smooth that part of it over?
Right. And before we just keep going here, because we still have so much to talk about, which is just really cool. I think it's really exciting. We got to talk about our friends over at Prize Picks, because I love daily fantasy. Lars, I know you love doing some of that kind of stuff as well. And Prize Picks is just the best way to go out and do it, because testing your skills on Prize Picks this football season is just the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Some of the fun things that you can do on Prize Picks are they offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Another cool thing about Prize Picks is with the Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury assurance. And you can go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first-time deposit match up to $100. And again, that's go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Whew, this has been a big day. We got to talk to some of the coaches about Oregon week. Stay tuned for that, because Thursday and Friday, I know that this is like it's Oregon week, and we're trying to do as much of that as we possibly can. But this was also like just the new athletic director and just Troy Dannen and everything that he said and done has been just as noteworthy as talking about Oregon. So stay tuned Thursday and Friday as we do keep going through all that. We're going to have a nice collaboration with Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Tech Spencer McLaughlin. But for the rest of today, we're going to spend some more time talking about just the future of the Husky athletic program, because Lars, I know we've said it through the first two segments, but this program really does seem to be in great hands.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it seems like, I know I made the pun the other day, but it's like he's really catching the wave right at the perfect time. I mean, it's like Jen Cohen did such a good job getting you up to a certain point, but there were certain things that just, it didn't seem not necessarily that she couldn't do, but maybe that, I mean, she was outsourcing the basketball hires by the end of her tenure. Like,
right.
And I'm not talking outsourced to a firm. I'm talking like within the department was outsourcing it. Like she was involved, but nowhere near as much as I know Troy Dannen will be involved in, let's say, a baseball hire. I mean, he'll certainly consult, right, with other people in the department and with other hires. But I mean, like if you think about it, like if Washington has to make a change at the men's basketball head coach in a year or two, I have no doubt Troy Dannen is the kind of guy who could, with the backing of Washington and the financial support that he's now going to have versus what he's had the past couple of stops at Tulane and UNI, get a marquee coach, right? You don't have to now go, hey, we're going to go for this is no shot at Mike Hawkins, right? But we're going to take the guy who's never been a head coach, but been a longtime assistant under a storied, legendary Hall of Fame head coach and a great program. We just want a proven winner, right? I mean, Kalen, for example, necessarily hasn't been a proven winner at the Power 5 level before Washington, but he had been a proven winner at multiple levels. And so I think that's kind of like that was the caveat there, right? Where he won a national championship at the NAIA level last decade. But, since then has moved up and is a great relationship guy. It's a destination job for both of them. That's why they're so similar. It's like you just kind of can see that relationship is going to be just like this. There's going to be no issues there because, I mean, he hit the nail on the head. football is the engine. He's what is the
he called it the engine today, and he called it the 1,000-pound gorilla on KJR yesterday.
Right, exactly. But the point of it is he knows how valuable football is, and he knows how valuable all athletic department programs are. But there is a 1-2 pecking order of football and men's basketball, and everybody else falls in line from there. And you have to have that as an AD, not just, and it's easier said than done, right? I mean, anybody can say, oh, I'm going to do this for my program. I'm going to do that for my program. But he really seems like a guy where it's like he's the guy taking notes, not the one being interviewed, right? Where he's a very much, I mean, I almost kind of caught on to that today where he was kind of like, I mean, I remember right after the opening statements were done and kind of they were going to open it up to Q&A, Softy Mahler on KJR was doing a live broadcast from the show house where they were holding the press conference, and Dannon looked up and was like, he's very observant. He takes notes, but he's not judgmental, right? He's not
his first comment was about the boat just that hangs off the top, and he's like, yeah, I'm sitting under some history right now.
Exactly. And so it's like it's the small things, right? It's the details, right? It's in everything. And I mean, every coach, every great coach, right, says that. Chris Peterson said that it's all about the details. Kalen DeBoer said if you just do the little things right, all those little things stack up. And it's all cliche. I mean, I talked to somebody in the athletic department after the press conference before we did our breakout session, and it's like, yeah, you can say it, but it's almost like nothing feels forced. There's no script. He's the guy that will take the notes. He's going to have his own notes in his head, but he's going to take those notes and then put them next to his notes and say, okay, does this overlap? What works? And he seems like a guy who is aware to that, going back to tying this whole thing together. He's aware enough to say, I believe, say, okay, you know what, let's try that way, right? Maybe I like my way, but maybe we'll try this and see if we can maybe find a happy medium ground. He seems like a guy who's really able to cultivate and work together versus, no, this is my plan. No matter what, we're gonna do it. If you step out of line, you're out, sort of thing. He seems like a guy where it's like, hey, if you want to step on the line, I mean, I wouldn't like it, but if you got a point to make, please, share it and do. Sure. Let's work together on this. And I think that's exactly what you want as a modern day athletic director, somebody who knows the vision, has a vision, but is also open to say, anybody else in the room have suggestions. And I'm fully open to listening to them, not just, all right, so I've said what we're going to do. Now, what do you guys want to do? I'm not going to do it, but what do you want to do?
Right. It's that just genuine thing that it's very hard to describe, right? It's just kind of a feeling you get when you talk to a certain person. Because who's one other person that we've mentioned him many times on the show, and I'm sure people just know where we're going with this. But whenever you talk to Kalen DeBoer, you get that same feeling. You just say, yeah, this person is just somebody genuine. Like I know I told you on our way out the door, I just kind of saw him as we were walking to go have our breakout session, and he just kind of slapped me on the back and said, hey, how's it going? Which is he's just a genuine person like that. That's just what he does. And Troy just seems to just have a lot of those same qualities about him. And on top of that, what has he done everywhere he's gone? He's won. He talked about Northern Iowa, where they were seated in the NCAA tournament when they got to go play at what is now Climate Pledge Arena, as he kept calling it Key Arena, which it always will be. And just kind of the same thing about Tulane during the press conference. Where did they rank? Oh yeah, we were 9th in the country after beating USC. And who was right ahead of us? Washington. And it's saying all those things, and like just kind of continuing on the point of just being a genuine person. One of the things that I just kind of thought about during his press conference that I thought was just not only just genuine, but also very relatable was he said, yeah, I really wanted this job. And after, doing all the vetting, doing everything that went on, I sat around for 6 weeks, just kind of just a nervous wreck saying, I really hope I get this job, which was just kind of like, yeah, man, I know what you mean. I know what that feels like.
Right, exactly. I mean, I thought we were going to do another third ad read for a certain product. But anyways, but beside that point, you're absolutely right, and I think it's just to kind of put a bow on all of this. It's kind of like when we heard the hire was announced. First of all, the hire was done fantastically. Chris Peterson had a lot of insight. Aaron O'Connell helped out. Aaron DeBoer helped. Yeah, there's a few others in that mix that I know I'm forgetting, but I know those two, O'Connell and Peterson specifically, kind of 1A, 1B in that, along with Kase and et cetera. But I think it just kind of it put validity to everything that we had heard, but also nobody seemed to say, yeah, it's great, but now we actually got to see how he actually does here. It's like, no, no. It almost just kind of seems like somebody returning home in a way where it's almost like, hey, you know what? You used to be an assistant here. You went out, you've been a coach at a few other places, and now you're going to come back to lead your program here. That just kind of was the feeling I got. It's like, this guy is not a guy who, if the Ohio State job stays open, they call him, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Ohio State now. I'm going to go to Bama. Or I'm going to go to Georgia. It's like, no. I want to be here at Washington because I got 2 young kids, a wife. There's no reason. He has 4 kids, two that are older than 20 and 2 that are younger than 10. Or one's 10, one's a little bit younger than that. But the point is,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, but the point is, it's like he's somebody who's going to plant his flag here for at least a decade, if not longer.
So, right. And to exactly what you said, one of the things that he said on KJR was, like, I want this to be my last job. And that's not something that should ever be taken lightly, but I want to let you get your last word in. And the last thing that I wanted to say was the best analogy that I feel like I can give for just the feeling that you get from just listening to him speak and where this program feels like it's going is in 2016. And everybody remembers, like, just the feeling of playing in the Peach Bowl game when Washington played Alabama. There was just kind of this feeling of, oh, it's nice to be here. It's cool that this team is kind of hanging around for a little while. That's really fun. And then fast forward to last season and fast forward to what we've seen so far this season, where all of a sudden there is not just a feeling of, oh yeah, they can win this game. It's an expectation of, yeah, the Huskies are going to win this game. And that's just kind of what Troy Dannen has seemed to just kind of, and of course, there's a whole long way to go here, but that's just kind of the feeling that I get, and just there's a different expectation now. To quote Chris Peterson after that game, the bar has been raised, and he seemed to have raised the bar a lot with his expectations and what he's going to do to get Washington to that point.
Right, and just to kind of cap that point off, but it's all attainable, right? He didn't set unrealistic goals like, hey, I want to win, a national championship every year. It's like, no, I just want to win every year. What that winning looks like, if it's continued winning success, I don't think it matters, because ideally, if you're continuing to win, you're continuing to grow. So it's like you rarely have where you don't consider 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. It's like, yeah, it's winning, but we need to get to a new bar. And it's like, no, if you're saying I'm a consistent winner, it's like 9, 10, 11 wins per year is like 10 wins is probably the bar at this point. You're right. If you're Washington after the season, total season, not just in conference, I'm talking total. And it's like that, all the things that Troy said are attainable. And so now it's just a matter of, now we just got to give him time to do it.
I feel like that's a great place to wrap up for today. Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to the everydayers who just, you guys are the ones that drive the show. We really appreciate your constant support. Everyone who's watching on YouTube, everyone who's subscribed. And if you're not an everydayer yet, or you'd like to become one, please feel free to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We are on all of these places. Feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, leave us a 5-star review, whatever it is. Like this video, share it. We really appreciate everything it is that you're doing to help drive the show. And we will talk to you on Thursday with a whole lot more Oregon talk.